This is wrestling's greatest moments.
Hey now, wrestling fans! It's time for another episode of Wrestling's Greatest Moments. There are many reasons that Madison Square Garden has earned the nickname the Mecca of professional wrestling, including the many great moments that took place there. Sit back as Wrestling's Greatest Moments looks at Madison Square Garden Magic, Macho Madness vs. Hulkamania, the terrific trilogy. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. The beginning of an epic rivalry. Randy Macho Man Savage vs. Hulk Hogan. A feud that became a career-long rivalry for both men, ranking up there with other career-expanding blood feuds such as Ric Flair vs. Ricky Steamboat and The Rock vs. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Although Savage vs. Hogan is best known for the epic storyline involving the formation and eventual destruction of the Mega Powers, the feud's origin dates back to a thrilling trilogy in Madison Square Garden that quickly became the talk of the wrestling world thanks to the Aftermaths and Coliseum home video. The series began at the end of December and continued for 2 more matches, giving fans a taste of things to come over the next 2 decades, as both wrestlers alternated between friend and enemy. Why Savage was so special. Randy Savage entered the WWF in June 1985, with the WWF running a storyline of the promotion's heel managers courting him. Savage shocked them and the WWF when he chose an unknown woman named Miss Elizabeth to manage him. The beautiful brunette was an unknown quality, but she quickly proved the perfect foil for Savage's egotistical and at times animalistic character. Savage verbally abused her during interviews and didn't hesitate to use her as a human shield during matches. The unlikely pairing of the sweet Elizabeth with the aptly named Savage left fans scratching their heads as to why she put up with him. In his unauthorized history of the WWE, Bill Hanstock describes what made the couple so compelling. Elizabeth rarely spoke, but always remained poised and elegant. It was one of the most nuanced and unique dynamics in pro wrestling. A thoroughly virtuous and upstanding babyface manager accompanying an unrepentant blowhard and conniving heel to the ring every night. The Macho Man made a quick impression on WWF fans, dispatching opponents with remarkable ease. Savage's phenomenal physique was just one element to his act. The Macho Man combined remarkable speed, agility, and a brilliant blend of brawling and high-flying moves. At times he wrestled like a cat, and other times a spider, which may be why he once wrestled under a mask as the Spider. Then there were the promos. Savage quickly captivated fans with his promos that combined bombast and surrealism for an unforgettable experience. The Macho Man oozed charisma, and while fans couldn't stand his heel tactics or how he treated his manager Miss Elizabeth, he was nonetheless captivating. For Randy Savage, there is a key to connecting with an audience. Wrestling is emotional. You have to be into it in order to translate that to the wrestling fans, and that is what they deserve. As talented and dedicated as he was, Randy Savage knew he was working in a land of giants, and according to the biography, Macho Man, The Untamed, Unbelievable Life of Randy Savage, Savage found another edge to stand out. Psychologically, this was one of the main reasons that Randy adopted his elaborate costumes. Yes, they were loud and drew attention, and helped him style and profile like his contemporary Ric Flair, but they also created the optical illusion that the Macho Man took up more space than he really did. It didn't take the Macho Man long to climb the ranks in the WWF, as he made his initial impression by battling the WWF's undercard before setting his sights on Tito Santana's Intercontinental Championship. In addition, Savage made a big splash when he competed at the WWF's Wrestling Classic, advancing to the finals and losing the tournament by countout to the Junkyard Dog, who received a bye in the semifinals, a point that heel color commentator Jesse the Body Ventura brought up constantly as Savage battled the Junkyard Dog. Hogan helps the WWF to the top. Meanwhile, Hulkamania was running wild in the WWF, as the Hulkster helped the WWF make WrestleMania a success, and the WWF capitalized with follow-ups such as Saturday Night's Main Event, and other unlikely endeavors such as the wrestling album and the Saturday morning cartoon Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling. While there were many wrestlers who contributed to the WWF success, Hogan could be likened to Reggie Jackson's infamous comment where he described himself as, I'm the straw that stirs the drink. I'm the guy who puts the meat in the seats. Meanwhile, Randy Savage continued his blitzkrieg through the WWF, continuing his chase against Tito Santana, which included an exciting match on the November 2nd, 1985 edition of Saturday Night's Main Event. That match ended in a double countout for the Macho Man and Santana, but their series wasn't over. The start of something special. In light of Savage's growing number of wins, a match against WWF champion Hulk Hogan was just a question of time. Before long, the two were throwing down at house shows. However, their match at Madison Square Garden symbolized the start of their legendary rivalry. The Garden was still the mecca of professional wrestling and where WWF programs officially began. While WrestleMania and Saturday Night's Main Event offered fans more access to the WWF product, house shows were still the promotion's lifeblood and where fans got to see and react to programs. Fans watching the terrific trilogy discovered Savage was an opponent unlike Hogan's many previous foes. More importantly, they responded well to the series, letting the WWF know they had a hit. On Monday, December 30th, 1985, Savage met Hogan in the Garden. The holidays were over, and fans were preparing to ring in the new year. In music, Lionel Richie's Say You, Say Me was at the top of the Billboard Hot 100. And believe it or not, Eddie Murphy's Party All the Time was close behind in the number 2 spot. At the box office, Rocky IV continued to clobber the competition, but films such as Spies Like Us and The Jewel of the Nile were also performing well. An average movie ticket cost $3.55, and if you were filling up your gas tank, you were looking at $1.12 a gallon. This is all secondary as fans gathered in the Garden to witness Hogan's WWF title defense against Savage. Would the Macho Man fare any better than previous challengers in the Garden had? The Hulkster had fought off title challenges from Roddy Piper and the Magnificent Morocco, including a hotly contested steel cage match, not to mention his colossal tag match with Mr. T against Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff at the first ever WrestleMania. The match also aired on the MSG network, which meant that fans lucky enough to have access to the cable channel could watch it. Former wrestlers Gorilla Monsoon and Lord Alfred Hayes were impressed by the Macho Man's lavish ring rope, and like any red-blooded male, the announcers didn't fail to take notice of Miss Elizabeth's presence by Savage's side. During the commentary, Monsoon and Hayes questioned whether Savage was ready for the many responsibilities of the WWF title. Little did they know, but Savage would be the man Vince McMahon called upon to hold the title when Hulk Hogan took time off for his vehicle, No Holds Barred. The Garden exploded with cheers as soon as Hogan entered the arena. Hogan's popularity was still going strong, despite nearly 2 years with the WWF Championship. Anyone who doubts just how over Hogan was at the time needs to listen to the fans' ovation for him during the match. Incredibly, as over as Hogan was, his popularity hadn't peaked. A Bell-to-Bell Brawl. As Hogan basked in the fans' adulation, Elizabeth appeared to be doing her best to stop her client from attacking the champion before the match began. However, fans knew there was little she could do to influence the Macho Man. Meanwhile, Savage talked trash with Hogan, undoubtedly trying to psych out the champion. The bell rang, but Savage decided to show off his physique rather than lock up with the champion. As impressive as Savage looked, his physique wasn't in the same league as Hogan's. The fans let the challenger know this, booing him as Elizabeth attempted to console Randy with a kiss. Finally, the two superstars locked up, but Hogan tossed Savage aside with frightening ease. Not to be outdone by Savage's posturing, Hulk posed for the fans, then played some mind games of his own by blowing a kiss to Elizabeth while she stood at ringside. Infuriated, Savage went after Hogan, only for Hogan to whip him into the ropes and floor him with a shoulder block. Savage got up, and the announcers observed that Savage seemed to be surprised by Hogan's speed. This was a serious concern, as Savage's speed was one of his biggest tools for dealing with Hogan's strength advantage. Things did not go well for Savage, as Hogan brushed off the Macho Man's offense before sending him out of the ring. Hogan followed out after the challenger, only for Savage to grab Miss Elizabeth and use her as a human shield, a common tactic when things went south for Savage. Things were going well for Hogan until Savage's speed advantage finally came through. The Macho Man managed to beat Hogan to the punch as he entered the ring. Randy was relentless from there, jumping to the top turnbuckle and landing a flying axe handle on the champion. Multiple attacks weakened Hogan, and the champion was eventually sent out of the ring. Savage saw his chance and climbed to the top turnbuckle again, this time dropping a flying axe handle while Hogan was outside the ring. Hogan somehow made it back in, and Savage continued his offense, covering Hogan for a 2 count. Unfortunately for Savage, he ran into the same problem as so many other challengers had. Hogan began hulking up. No matter what Savage threw at him, Hogan brushed it off, eventually clotheslining Savage and knocking him out of the ring with a big boot. Play-by-play man Gorilla Monsoon reminded the fans just how much of the match had taken place outside the ring, and things weren't about to change. However, this time fans were shocked when Elizabeth placed herself between Hogan and Savage, begging the champion not to hurt Savage. Hogan did the only thing he could. He took Elizabeth and gently moved her out of the way. Savage was helpless as Hogan threw him back into the ring and continued his offense. Only a momentary miscue gave Savage a chance to recover. Hogan threw Randy into the ropes and bent down, perhaps considering a back body drop. Savage stomped Hogan in the head and, in an amazing display of speed, raced to the top turnbuckle, delivering a flying elbow smash to the Hulkster. Was this the end of Hulkamania? Almost, as Hogan only managed to kick out at 2.5. Savage berated referee Dick Kroll for a slow count, but Savage was wasting his time. In fact, this allowed Hogan to go after Savage with a clothesline. Whether it was a special Savage spidey sense or just ring awareness, Savage got out of the way and Hogan clotheslined the referee. Sensing an opportunity, Savage kneed the Hulkster in the back while he checked on the referee. Showing his ring generalship, not to mention his mastery of breaking the rules, the Macho Man grabbed the WWF Championship belt and used it to add some extra power as he delivered a flying axe handle to Hogan. An inconclusive finish. Hogan looked to be in bad shape now. However, he caught a break when Randy Savage finally revived the referee, leading to Dick Kroll counting Hogan out. The announcers reminded fans that the title couldn't change on a countout, a situation that had fans puzzled as to why Savage didn't try for a pinfall. Ring announcer Howard Finkel declared Savage the winner, even as Miss Elizabeth placed the title belt around Macho Man's waist. However, Finkel pointed out that although Savage had won the match, he had not won the title. Hot-tempered as ever, Savage clobbered the referee and exited the ring. Hogan was still dazed, but not out. He chased after Savage, peppering him with punches, until he was able to retrieve his championship belt. If Savage wanted the title, he'd have to earn it. Thanks to his countout win, Savage would receive a rematch, but would Hogan fare any better? Savage had shown he'd stop at nothing to win the match, but also an inability to stay focused enough to pin Hogan. Join us for a future installment where we examine their subsequent rematches and how they tied in with WrestleMania 2. Have you seen the terrific trilogy between Hogan and Savage at Madison Square Garden? Share your thoughts in the comment section and let us know if there are any videos you'd like Wrestling's Greatest Moments to cover. In the meantime, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, follow us on X and Instagram, and spread the good news about Wrestling's Greatest Moments, the channel that celebrates the squared circle.